Here is the strategy that we use for PD to get teachers to share, and it's called Pop and Go. I would not do this if you don't have relationships with your teachers because it really did take some psychologically safe environments for our teachers to share. When I first told them that they were sharing, there was some looks of fear because that is kind of scary to share an idea that you use in your classroom. So I just kind of want to put that out there that if you are going to do this, make sure you kind of have or know what your teachers do in their classroom to help them brainstorm. Because there were some teachers I went up to and I said, why don't you share this strategy that you do really well? And that kind of helped ease some of that anxiety. And then also, you have to have that environment where it's okay to fail forward, it's okay to share, and to let them know that they're doing really good things. Because again, we did have some teachers that were very afraid. So that's kind of like my disclaimer is I would not do this as a new coach in a building that I don't have those relationships with. I've been working with these teachers for 6 years, so they felt comfortable enough to share. And again, they were scared, but by the time of the end, some of them said this was their favorite professional learning experiment. So, what you're going to do first is they're going to share an impactful strategy. Also, I did not tell teachers ahead of time what Pop and Go was. It was just listed on the agenda, but no description, because again, I wanted them to come in not having something already created, because I know a lot of teachers are those type A type of people that would come and they would make things really beautiful and great, and then they would stress out because then they're doing it on their own time. I did not want that to happen. So all I said is we're doing a Pop and Go, and that was it. And then if somebody asked, I said it's a surprise. You're probably going to like it. You might hate it at first, but I think you're going to end up liking it. So again, just kind of throw that out there because again, I didn't want them coming with strategies. So the expectation was for them to think of a strategy that they use in their classroom that is very, very beneficial. Uh, and they were going to share that one strategy with their other colleagues. So here was kind of the roadmap. We had expectations. We went over the process. Then we went into design, where they actually went into their drive or they created something or they wrote out their directions of what their strategy is that they use. And then we shared it. And then we had a reflection piece to talk about what they learned and how they plan to reuse some of those ideas in their classroom. Here were just kind of some times. So we spent like 15 minutes on expectations. We spent about 30 minutes on the design process, and then we spent about an hour and a half. It depends on how many teachers you have. That time could change for the share area, and then we reflected. And so here we gave some examples. So there was three coaches that kind of went over this. So they had to create a name tag. So that's why I put my name on this. And then that way, because we were working with multiple buildings in our district, so not all teachers knew every single teacher. And it was multiple content areas as well. So mine was popcorn predictions, which is an EB strategy. So I also talked about that. I did not just come up with it on my own. This is a strategy that is created by EB teacher, and I wanted them to know that again, you don't have to be the creator of it. You can just use it, and it works in your classroom. And so we gave them a couple different examples when it came to examples, but you can kind of see here popcorn predictions, and it goes over all of the different steps for that. So you could insert your own strategy to model for your teachers. But you can kind of see here, I told them I did not remake this. I already had these slides when I used this strategy for students. Now they could remake something during that time limit that we gave for them to design, or um, they could reuse something that was already in their Google Drive. So that's what I told them is I already had these made and ready to go for my class. And so that's all that they kind of needed to know. So they were going to read the quotes, and what they do is they read these quotes and they pop around the room, kind of like what they were doing for this activity. And they write down their prediction one, their prediction two. And again, they're popping around and they're getting more textual evidence every single time they pop because they're meeting with someone else that has a different quote. And then they're writing down that prediction. So that was kind of that first piece, just explaining that. And again, it took about 2 to 5 minutes to explain what it was. And that was me modeling to them that they would do this. And one thing I would also suggest is in this stage, let them know they're not presenting to the whole group at once. It is going to be science fair style, where they are going to be popping around the room. They are going to share their ideas with a small group, and they might see everybody, they might not. And it was okay if some people stayed for 2 minutes. It was okay if some people stayed for 15 minutes. It was all kind of what they wanted to learn. And so having that anxiety as well of you're not coming up here to present to everybody, you're just coming down to present. And then Kurt, our other instructional coach, he used asking the restroom when he was a teacher. So students would stand by the door and give this signal. And you can kind of see here, it's pretty basic. He made his right on the spot because it was natural for him in his classroom. He just explained it to the kids. He didn't need like a slide. But now we were asking them to kind of share something. So he created just a quick slide. You can see he just used Arial font. It did not matter what the teachers created. It didn't need to be beautiful. We just wanted them to share something. And then he just added a GIF. So again, you could do something that might take 15 minutes in a classroom. You might do something that's just real quick or a classroom procedure. And then you could also do just like a strategy that teachers could use. So this one was another example from another instructional coach. And again, she just wrote out what she does using Google Slides. Some teachers went to Canva, some made a screencast. It was kind of cool seeing that design phase for teachers. So then we gave them 5 minutes to brainstorm. And during that 5 minutes, we walked through our plan for progress for our district and how whatever they were going to share just has to fall in one of these areas. And we told them that pretty much anything they use in their classroom falls in these areas. They might just not realize it. So they could have done like check-ins, they could have shared diversity ways, SEL strategies, cooperative learning, classroom management. They could have done personalized learning, like anything with blended learning, teacher clarity, choice, engagement, environment. They could have done something where it came up with authentic learning. That needs fixed right here. Where they were talking about like service learning or project, PBL, design thinking. It could have been something that they read, a book that they read that they wanted to share with their colleagues, a podcast or a YouTube channel. So again, that was our district's focus. So that's kind of why they did that. And then they all got this piece of paper. It was printed out. It was just for them to brainstorm ideas and kind of just search their drive. They could talk to colleagues. I was also walking around the room for teachers that might have been struggling, thinking they don't do anything really cool, and just going up to them and telling them you do stuff that's really cool in your classroom. And then I was able to kind of explain to them what they did, and then they kind of started to write down those ideas. And then we took a 10-minute break and we actually had popcorn. So we had popcorn made. We have a popcorn maker at one of our buildings. So we did that and we did the fun drive-in timer that counts down. So it's just a 10-minute break. They could grab snacks, grab water. They could keep brainstorming if they wanted to. They could start designing if they wanted to. But again, it was just kind of a quick 10-minute break to eat popcorn, connect with colleagues, talk about their ideas, and give anybody that needed additional time that time, and then let those that were ready to design, they could start. And then after we got back, we walked through creating a name tag, and we wanted their building, grade, subject, and strategy on it. Again, this was because we had teachers from all around our districts coming to this, so not everybody knew each other. So we wanted them to know what building they were at, their grade, their subject, and what strategy they were sharing. And we just used index cards for this, or you could grab name tags. And then the design process took 20 minutes. So then we talked about how they could search in their drive, they could describe it just verbally or write a paragraph about it. And they could also create a one pager. So those were like the 3 different ways that they could design this activity. And then we set a 20-minute timer, and I just kind of walked around the room. If they needed help creating or getting their ideas out or feedback on anything that they were sharing, I was there to support them along with the other instructional coaches. Once they were done, they used this Google form right here, and you'll just make a copy of it. And then you'll just want to relink yours if you're using this template. And what they did is they just put their name, building, grade, what their strategy was, right here, the name of it, what category it fell into, and then their description. So they could type up a paragraph or they could put in their URL to their Google Drive. I just had to remind people to make sure it was public or to our domain. So that was the next kind of step. And again, you could tweak whatever you needed for your own district. Then they shared. So when we shared, we moved to a different location. We were in our media center first. We actually moved to the cafeteria so that way we could have teachers on the outside that were sharing, and then teachers could kind of walk in a circle to see the different ideas. So it's kind of like speed dating, where they had a partner and they just kept going around the table to get different ideas and what they were going to do. And again, we went over these expectations before we moved to the cafeteria. Is we told them they were going to pop around the room. They could stay at somebody for 2 minutes, or they could stay for 5 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever they wanted to do to learn those strategies. They could do, and they could actually have that conversation with that teacher, ask different questions. They could ask how they're using it, roadblocks, whatever they wanted to do during that time, they could do that. Then they grabbed different ideas, they took notes, and then they repeated. So then they would go to the next person, take their idea, take notes, and then repeat. And these were our rotations. This just kind of helped us know which building was sharing and who was collecting notes during that time. And here were the notes. So it was about 2 people per 1 person when they were doing kind of the speed dating. Sometimes it was a group of 5. It just kind of depended, but it really did work out pretty well. And so again, here were those notes where they could write who it was, what the project was, and then any notes that they wanted to take real quickly. However, because we collected all of their um, activities or descriptions, we were also able to share that slide deck with our teachers. So when I went in and they went to responses, we had multiple different responses. So I went in and I just created a spreadsheet. And then I shared this spreadsheet with all of their responses as view only. And then the next day I went in and I went to the description and I just requested access for any of those that were not shared publicly. So after the notes, we reflected. So students reflect, or teachers reflected by themselves first by doing a triangle, circle, square, and they went in and they thought of 3 important points that they learned about, something that maybe agreed with their learning or their teaching, and then something that was still circling in their head. So again, we went that and we did that individually. Then we did it small group. So then they picked one person to speak and they wrote what one thing was kind of their main takeaway or their 3. We said 1 to 3. What was something that the group agreed with, and then what was something that was still circling in the group's head. And so again, after that, we shared out whole group. We had chart paper and they stuck post-it notes for the groups. And then we just did a quick share out. And then after that, we started to make a plan and remind them that instructional coaches were there to support them, their colleagues were there to support them. And by this point, teachers were really enjoying the PD. They really enjoyed this pop and go kind of style right here. But the getting ready for it was kind of that anxious part. I linked the spreadsheet here. So I just took this spreadsheet and I linked it right here so teachers could go back and they can now relook at all of those different strategies that were shared whenever they want. And then we just kind of created some must-dos and can-dos. We gave them about 20 minutes after the session to create like an agenda on how they plan to implement this in their day or start lesson planning. They had an exit ticket that was due that day as well, where they just shared really quickly. And again, you can edit this exit ticket and then link your own. And they just shared real quickly their name, building, grade, what strategy they learned and they want to implement. And then if they needed a coach support, they were able to click these boxes and then in the other box, finish the ... And then that was linked. And then they could reach out to a coach or another teacher as well during that time. So that was kind of the main slide deck. On the next day, what I did, because I think it's super important, is that follow-up piece. So I actually opened up this Google slide and I went through everybody's comment. Anybody that asked for follow-up, I went in and I followed up with them. So again, this exit ticket spreadsheet, anybody that filled out that last question, I was highlighting and I emailed them. So I emailed them, their instructional coach or principal, depending on what was needed. Sometimes I even emailed the teacher that shared that strategy to ask for more details as well. So I think that's a huge piece when you're doing this different type of PD, is that follow-up piece as well. So again, just went in, emailed everybody because I did collect their email address. There wasn't too many like opinion type questions. It was kind of straightforward of just 2 questions, so I wasn't too worried about that. And again, it's all about creating that culture. So then after I went through what support they needed, I then looked at what strategies um, people were excited about to try. And I emailed the teachers that shared those strategies. And I copied their principal and their instructional coach on there as well. And I just told them, hey, on this question right here, your strategy was listed as one of the top strategies that teachers took away from this day. So that was kind of fun to celebrate with them, and then having and seeing principals also respond back. And I just kind of said, we just want to celebrate you. And thank you for sharing, because I know that was out of your comfort zone. But again, it's following up with people and letting them know that what they do in their classroom is really awesome. And yes, it did take me more time to go through it, but I think the later of that is going to be helpful in future PDs. So when teachers are in their TBTs or when they're sharing with other teachers, they're going to have more confidence to know, hey, what I do is not normal. And what I do might be able to help others. So I wanted to also kind of validate them and celebrate with them. So I just sent them a quick email that kind of just quickly said, I just wanted you to know that your strategy was listed as something that people learned and are excited to implement. And thank you so much for sharing that strategy. So I did that. I probably sent about 15 emails in that category that had like our top strategies that people took away. And it was really cool because it was teachers that typically don't maybe get the same response that they're more of those quiet teachers that might sit back and don't share as much. And so I kind of appreciated who was part of that group. And then again, I tagged their principals and added them to that email. So that is Pop and Go. And again, it was a lot of fun, but it does take a lot of psychologically safe environments to build up before you just do this. So that would be my one tip. And then just reminding teachers they're not sharing a whole group, they are sharing in a small group setting, and people are just popping around. And it went really well. So I hope you're able to reuse this in your own district.